This is the Harbor Management Commission's Rules and Procedures Update Committee meeting on Thursday, April 8th, 2021, beginning at 9 a.m. This is Jack Hirschler. With us are Commissioners Kim Taylor, Ted Schwartzman, and also participating Jeff Stedman. Are there any other commissioners who have just joined the call? And again, commissioners, you'll need to unmute yourself. This meeting is being recorded, but all members of the public may listen but cannot participate during the call due to the town's COVID rules. If you have any comments regarding today's meeting, please email them to me at sapora@me.com. I'll spell it. Tango Zulu India Papa Oscar Romeo Alpha Hotel at mikeecho.com, and write HMC Rules Update Committee in the subject line. Your comments will be included in the minutes. We'll include your name and address, but we won't include your email address if you make comments following the meeting by email. Today's meeting agenda is posted on the town website, and embedded in that agenda are links to document files that are stored on the town website that we'll be discussing. And the agenda is also posted on the town's website. I thought that for today's meeting, which is going to be all around updates to the rules and procedures, it might be useful for me to start the meeting by quickly reviewing how we got to the point that we're at right now and the updates of these rules. The Rules Update Committee was formed by Commission Chair Kim Taylor last summer, and the committee first met last summer and then met several times throughout the fall and updated the Harbor Management Commission at its monthly meetings and its work, and had detailed discussions with the full commission about its recommendations. In early December, there was a public hearing to review the proposed updated rules and to get feedback from members of the public. Immediately following that public hearing, there was a deliberative session of the full commission to discuss feedback from members of the public. And then after that, in December at the monthly Harbor Management Commission meeting, there was a detailed discussion of the proposed updated rules and the proposed updates to the fee table and updates to the town code that would be for consideration of the RTM. At that time, some of the commissioners needed more time to read the updated rules and to think about the updated mooring rules, and so we deferred taking any action in December. In the intervening 4 months since last December, we have since received 2 additional suggestions from members of the public regarding mooring rules, and we'll be discussing those 2 suggestions as part of our agenda today. Kim, I thought it might be useful to turn it over to you to provide the committee and the commissioners with an update on your conversation with town council related to the Rule 6I riparian rights rule. Kim?
Okay. I spoke with the town attorney, Jim Baldwin, generally about these rules and about the specific situation that we're facing on a specific mooring situation that everybody's aware of, and we had a long talk about the idea of one dock and or mooring for as an appropriate consideration for those asserting littoral rights. He was very impressed with our efforts to balance the needs and the rights of the public against those of property owners immediately abutting the harbor. And he thought that given that the deep was the deep's position that one dock and/or mooring was the appropriate consideration, that we were right, and it was appropriate for us to also be consistent with DEEP's position, and that in our efforts to update the rules, particularly the Rule 6, that our efforts to clarify that position also was very appropriate, and was a good and that it was a good idea to give folks notice of what the situation would be when and if they were buying property and seeking to get a mooring or access to the water. So I think I'm hopeful that with that, I know a lot of commissioners had concerns about Rule 6I, and I'm sorry that they're not here today, but I'm hopeful that that with that support, and I know that Jeff has been telling us that this is DEEP's position all along, that with the combination of being able to, that there's no daylight between us and DEEP and us and the town council on this provision, that we'll be able to move ahead a little more quickly.
Very good. Ted or Jeff, any comments on that?
Jack, this is Ted. The first question I have for you is, are we actually talking about 6I, or are we talking about 6N?
Well, 6NI, I think, right?
Oh.
I is a 6. Is there a separate 6I?
Yes. There's not. There's separate 6I, but Ted's right.
I misspoke. Sorry. Yes.
But that's okay. I just wanted to make sure I was following along properly.
No, you're in the right place.
You're in the right place.
But I do have a comment, and this relates back to the last meeting of the Full Harbor Management Commission back a month ago in March, where we heard from Attorney Casey, representing the waterfront property owner in Southport Harbor, and he made a point. He made a point that has stuck with me since then, and the point that he made was he was surprised that the Harbor Management Commission was willing to, in effect, be the arbitrator, or perhaps it's not the Harbor Management Commission, perhaps it's the harbor master, but is willing to be the arbitrator of whether someone is considered an owner or not. And the reason I was thinking about that is that this area does get quite complex with limited partnerships and trusts and all other forms of ownership, and is probably going to get even more complex in the future with estate planning and ways of valuing ownership and other goals and ambitions that people have. So I was wondering if there might be a better way to ask waterfront property owners that are looking for littoral rights whether they're an owner, and that is, rather than have them submit documents to us and have either the harbor master or the Harbor Management Commission make the determination, could we in effect ask the waterfront property owner to submit an affidavit or some sort of statement where they're asserting that they are a waterfront property owner?
Yeah, I think
so.
That's a very good
in that
idea,
case,
yes.
the harbor master or the Harbor Management Commission would rely on the affidavit or the statement of the waterfront property owner, which is subject to all the laws and rules of stating truthfully whether you are an owner or not, and if you're not stating truthfully, I believe that would be fraudulent. But it seems to me like we do want to take ourselves out of the role of trying to determine ownership because it's such a really complex area and none of us are experts. So I would just throw that on the table and see what folks have to think about that.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good suggestion. I'm not sure whether the affidavit's the right approach, but a representation from the person applying for the riparian priority permit that they are an owner should suffice, in my view. I agree. I don't think we want to be in the business of policing ownership. We just want to know that our rules are being followed, and the rules say that priority assignment is only applicable to people who are owners. So if they tell us they're an owner, we should be able to rely on that. You know,
right.
As I recall that conversation, the question I was asking is how do we prevent somebody who has a non-ownership connection to the property from doing that? And your solution, I think, would address this nicely without putting a lot of administrative hassle on the back of the harbor master.
Yeah, and again, Jack, if you go back to the March meeting and the issue that's on the table regarding the waterfront property owner that now has an application into for riparian rights, basically the holdup right now is the ownership issue, but there's a second issue coming up, and that is whether this person should be granted a mooring anyway, since there is dockage that's involved in this particular situation. So if you think about it in that context, let's say that this person does assert that they are an owner. Therefore, that takes the ownership issue off the table, and now it allows the harbor master to focus on really what's the key issue, and that is should this individual and should this property be granted a mooring, given that there are other circumstances that need to be evaluated. And I think that's a circumstance that the DEP really made their statement on years ago when they reviewed the harbor management plan and said, yes, this is a fair way to look at it and evaluate whether someone should be granted a mooring if, in fact, they are a waterfront property owner. So I think not only does it remove us from having to determine ownership, but it also gets the focus back to the issue at hand, which is whether a mooring should be granted, given the nature of that property and any dockage that they may already have. I throw that on
you on that. I mean, I think that's a very good solution. I think correctly it does focus on the core issue with respect to that applicant, but with respect to our rules review, does anybody have a different view with respect to what we should be seeking for an indication the person is an owner?
Can I think that's a very, very good topic that Ted's just raised for what it means that I think it is. But this is based on the principle that's well established in the rules and procedures, that it is an owner of the property who applies for the mooring permit, not someone who's given permission by the owner to apply for it. Right?
Right.
Is that's the basic principle. It is a person with ownership. Is it a person who's the owner or with ownership rights? You know how it got confusing with this issue that, of course, that we're dealing with, but established in the rules from the beginning, it's the littoral riparian property owner,
right? Not
someone who is assigned the privilege of using the owner's littoral rights.
Right.
Right. That's our principle, and that isn't changing.
Right. Yeah, and I guess the question for the rule, it sounds like there's not any disagreement on this, and a document in writing, indicate whatever the form it takes, provided to the harbor master that the person applying for priority assignment under this rule is an owner should suffice. The question, I guess, for this meeting is there a change necessary in N to say that, or is it really just an administrative thing for the harbor master to to enforce our rule by asking for something in writing, an affidavit or some other form. I just don't know if there's a change needed in the language of our rule to implement what Ted is suggesting with respect to a representation from the owner of the property that they in fact own the property. I just don't know if N needs to be amended here.
Where is the section? Sorry.
This is on page 7 of the rules.
Yes, but what isn't there a section about the information that the harbor master may request?
Right, and that there's several of those. That would be 4B and 4D, and with respect to the North Anchorage permit, 7E, and those give tremendous latitude to the harbor master of what he can require. So, I mean, you could look at 4B and 4D and 7E and get comfort there, or do you just look at N under whatever number this is? That's 6? Yes, 6N, and say, you know, this is an administrative application for the harbor master to decide what he needs to be satisfied that the person's an owner.
Well, I just play devil's advocate here. I mean, this is. I think Ted's point about this getting more complicated is right on, and you know, we have faced the situations in the past where the waterfront property is owned by a corporation or a trust, but it's been in the name of the person who's been applying for the mooring. So it's been pretty straightforward. It's been easy to recognize, you know, that this corporation is really is this person. But in the situation that Mr. Casey brought to us, the corporation it's not entirely clear from the paperwork that we've been requiring up to now that the name of the person requesting the mooring does in fact have an ownership interest in the corporation. So it seems to me that since we all have limited times on the commission, and the harbor master has a limited term, and though we've been lucky to have longevity in that position, there will come a time when there is somebody new on the job and there are new commissioners. And it seems to me that if we can add a clause or I don't think we need to add a whole new section, but perhaps a clause or some language saying that the rules give the harbor master, you know, saying specifically that the rules give the harbor master the authority to ask for some kind to demonstrate ownership, if you will. Wouldn't be a bad thing to have. And I could go either way, but it seems to me that ensures that any effort by the harbor master to dig deeper than just what information is on the basic application is okay.
Yeah. So 4A, concerning mooring and docking records, says that the harbor master will require use of an online mooring system. Through that system, all applicants will submit new and renewable applications and all other required materials, including document images.
Yes.
That's the broad. One of the broad.
It's very broad
provisions.
And
yes,
4B and D say, and any other he may. I mean, so there's and that language gets carried over in 7E as well. I think it's 7E. I wrote it down. 7E or C. I think C. So that with respect to the North Anchorage. So there's consistent, repetitive language about the flexibility of the harbor master to require additional things.
But Kim's correct, though. A future harbor master and a future commission wouldn't have right off the top have the benefit of this discussion we're having now. So when you go back to 6, let's see.
I think there's a sentence that could be added. Kim, I guess I think there's a difference between what Ted was suggesting and what I heard you suggesting Ted was suggesting a representation in writing by the person formally that they are an owner sort of can end the harbor master's need to pursue ownership questions. And it sounded like, if I heard you right, you were suggesting that he could be enabled to request even more than that. I wasn't.
No. I was not. I'm saying he could. I'm agreeing with what Ted is saying.
Okay.
And I think that some clause or brief statement in the rules would be okay.
Yeah, I think it should be should. I mean, I agree, and I think in end there should be a sentence added, Jeff, that says that the harbor master shall or should ask for something in writing. And Ted's point is an affidavit. I don't know what form it takes, but he should get something in writing that the person says that they're an owner to conform to our rule.
Well, especially, Mr. Casey has made the point that the harbor master has asked in this situation for information that other property owners were not required to produce, and that somehow that was bad. So even though we have this broad language in these rules, it seems to me that if we can provide just a little bit of cover and a little bit of encouragement, then future situations, might not get contentious quite so fast.
I agree.
I think it would go in, like Jack says, in paragraph N.
Yes.
And
maybe just a sentence, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think that's really all you need is just a sentence. The one other thing that I would add, though, that I think should be in that sentence is I think the person should be required to submit that affidavit or whatever it is they're submitting in writing each year when they reapply, because ownership changes. Things are very fluid in today's world, and I think we don't just want to assume that if someone submitted this years ago, that's still the form of ownership and that person's still an owner, even though they reside in that residence.
Especially because our proposed rule also has a procedure for what happens if the person no longer owns the property. This is in IV on page 8.
Right.
So that's a very good point. So it should be required. And also I think, to Jeff, your reference earlier to the online mooring system, these images of these written documentation should be stored in the online mooring system, these annual submissions, just like the annual submission of insurance and registration.
Are there confidentiality or issues having to do with that, posting something like that? But that's not available for everyone
to see. It's not for the public. It's only the harbor master can see it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's in the system as a record. This is our record keeping, so it's just
all right. All right.
So it's a stored image that way. And this goes to your point that there will be future commissioners and future harbor masters, and having these records in an electronic form might be helpful.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's
I was going to suggest that we try to keep ourselves organized, bring up any other topics on the same rule at the same time so we're not bouncing around as we go through these. I had one other one, Jeff, that I'm just honestly confused about, and that is the sentence that ends on the top of page 8, followed by the sentence that begins on the top of page 8, at the next sentence. And I'm trying to understand if they're making different points or they're just redundant. So maybe you can help me understand. I read it a few times, and I'm just not clear that they're saying anything different. So the one that starts on the bottom of page 7 is a continuation of the thought immediately preceding it. But the point is that somebody who's a riparian rights person who's not been accepted for a priority mooring can maintain a place on the waiting list. And it looks to me like the sentence after that says the same thing.
That owner may maintain a place on the waiting list without assertion of littoral riparian rights priority.
Right. What's the next sentence saying that's different?
It's redundant, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, because the first sentence
catch.
is just a continuation of the thought preceding, which is all about somebody who's been denied, and then the next sentence, I think, is saying the same thing.
Yes.
I was trying to figure out if there's a point I was missing, but maybe not.
No, I think it's just when we were editing it, we made an edit and didn't eliminate something that should have been eliminated.
Okay.
That applicant's application for a new or renewed mooring permit may be denied so as to provide opportunity for additional mooring locations for the general public. That owner may maintain a place on the waiting list without assertion of littoral riparian rights. An individual littoral riparian property owner with a water access structure who has been denied an individual under this section, I think that second sentence can be removed.
That's my thought, but I thought maybe I was missing something.
Yeah.
That's very good to catch that. I'm just
Any other thoughts, lingering concerns on this rule broadly? 6.
I think I think we've done a good job on this rule.
Yeah. I would agree, and also say that we've done a nice job, I think, of trying to protect the interests of riparian property owners. Before we made these proposed changes, there was no protection for the right of somebody who had asserted riparian rights to be on the waiting list to not be asserting riparian rights. And this makes it very clear that somebody can do that. And it's similarly to how we've treated commercial fishermen being able to be on the waiting list while having jumped the line by virtue of their special situation.
Right.
And I think those are important improvements.
I think we've done it. I think it makes it clear. Yep.
Jack, I did have one more comment on the paragraph that you were just in, that you and Jeff were just talking about.
Okay.
So this is the bottom of the first paragraph at the top of page number 8. The very last sentence where we mention the date December 31st, 2020. Mm-hmm. Given that these are not in effect yet and really don't come into effect until the next boating season, which begins on January 1st, 2021, I'm just wondering if that should be December 31st, 2021 instead of 2020.
Good catch, yes.
Good get.
And there's other situations, I think, where we may have had grandfathering as well, that, Jeff, we should go through this carefully and make sure we move it up a year, just like we have to update the fees table for the same issue.
I'm making these changes.
I remember where the other
document
grandfathering that was December. Was it the? I can't remember.
I can't. I'm looking. I can't.
Yeah, I didn't notice that in reading through this, but it probably is somewhere.
Yeah, we should just try to be careful to catch that. Okay, Jeff, if I see it, I'll send you an email on that after the meeting if I find it.
Can I? Are we finished with this number in this paragraph? Or sorry to interrupt.
Nope, I'm good with it.
I think I may have found that other. No, I guess not. Paragraph or section 7, paragraph B. We also have a December 31st, 2020.
Yeah.
But that's really a representation of fact as opposed to grandfathering. So that's probably okay.
How about 6 and L? This was the grandfathering of the people about whether they already have a South Benson Marina slip, and they also were wanting.
Oh, yeah.
That was on page 6, the bottom. I think that was the other one I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there other rules, now I'm just sort of opening this back up, that anybody on this call has any lingering questions or concerns about that may be standing in the way of your voting yes to implement these updated rules?
Might we go back to the first page?
Sure.
Under Mooring Committee.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm just trying to make sure I've got so many documents here, but in my copy, a Mooring Committee of the HMC shall be appointed, and then going down to the fourth line, and it says, with matters pertaining to the mooring, anchoring, docking, and permitting of vessels. I've got
the permitting has been added since this was created, I think.
That's what I wanted, because I have that in a different font, and I wondered when that was added. And then in the
that would have had to have been, Jeff, in our regular December meeting, because that's the last time we talked, and this preceded that meeting. It was used as the agenda item for that December Harbor Management Commission meeting.
Okay, thanks. That helps, because when I typed this in, I typed it in a red font, different than the highlighted yellow sections.
I think at that meeting, or it may have been in our deliberative session after the special meeting, Doug had several suggestions for this paragraph.
Yes, it's Doug. And then in the last sentence, beginning with the Mooring Committee shall report regularly to the HMC, then I think he also added, comma, make recommendations to the HMC, which I've added here in red, and otherwise assist the HMC.
Yeah, I didn't have that. Okay, good.
Okay.
Right.
So in your next update, those changes from Doug will get included in this version that the full HMC sees.
Yes.
Good.
Okay, that's why those are in red and not.
Is there anything else in red that you have that we don't have for this meeting, and those listening to this call?
Well, no, I don't think so. I'm just going through each page now to see.
Okay. Yeah.
The yellow highlighted sections were.
Yeah, those were done after the public hearing. The deliberative session, the yellow.
I don't have any other of those. I think those were the only ones we added then at that meeting.
Okay. I think so too.
All right. Are there any other lingering concerns on any of the other rules before we move on to the next item on our meeting agenda?
Well, again,
actually, we can't do that yet. We need to move on to the other documents. Can we look next, if hearing no other concerns on rules, can we look at the document that's the previously dated 2021 permit fees and mooring tackle maintenance charges? Obviously, the dates need to change, and there's some references in that middle bold paragraph to 2021 that should change to 2022. But apart from date corrections to move it up a year, I don't have any changes myself to this, but I wanted to make sure we looked at it together. This, just to reflect on this, we've added references to the floats, and we've added references to the concept of the North Anchorage permit, and as we all discussed repeatedly, that the Pequot Yacht Club has agreed they would pay the highest schedule rate based on length of boat times 51 moorings, which are the maximum permitted at this point to be in the North Anchorage. So even though they might have some boats that are smaller than the largest size, their flexibility lets them put every mooring could have the largest size. So that's how that works.
Right.
And the floats fee is listed now as $255 on the bottom of that page. And then on the second page, the notion of the non-refundable administrative fee for people on the waiting list to defray the cost of administration, so that people with moorings are not subsidizing people on the waiting list. Any concerns or comments? Now, this is written in a way to be in sync with the proposed rules.
Right.
So there should be no daylight, as the term Kim used, between the rules language and this fees and tackle maintenance charge table.
Sorry to be confused, as I often am. The document that you have, Jack, does it have a date on it?
No, it's the one that was attached to the agenda today, and that was the same that was attached to the December,
okay.
I think, what was it, 15th, whatever the December regular Harbor Management Commission meeting was.
Okay, so I'm looking at the top. The heading is 2021 Southport Harbor mooring permit fees and mooring tackle maintenance charges.
And it says information in bold font is new for 2021.
Right. Okay, I got it.
The latest changes to this document in its most recent version was the section towards the middle of the first page about the commercially permitted mooring floats outside the North Anchorage have a $200 permit fee, and then the paragraph about Pequot Yacht Club's annual fee for the 51 moorings. And at the bottom of the page, the tackle fee for floats, $255, and then the new provision around the administrative fee for waiting lists. That's the final version of this, I think, the most recent version of it.
But we didn't hear any comments at the public hearing about this.
No, but it was provided as part of that hearing. There's
right.
no comment.
Right. And I don't think we heard any comments from the commissioners either.
No. But I guess, again, at our next meeting, Kim, we'd probably need to get them to agree to this, too.
Right.
And then the next document is the update, Jeff, that you put together for us of the necessary changes to the town code to bring it into alignment with the harbor management plan and the updated rules.
Right.
A couple definitions and a couple of technical changes.
This is dated December 12th, 2020.
Correct. And that was, for folks listening to this call, that was embedded in the agenda and is posted on the town website.
And that this would have to go. This has to go to the RTM.
Yes.
Right. I believe that we need to agree as a commission to send this to the RTM for their consideration.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it would probably need to be heard at two consecutive RTM meetings in order to become part of the town code, as I understand it.
Right.
And it goes through a committee, too, as I recall.
First, right. And they may ask us to come and explain it to them as well, the reason for it.
Right. So this is at least 2 months in the making out here.
Right. I mean, this goes to your point, Kim, that we really aren't, to get this done before the end of the year and in place, we need to get moving on this.
We need to get moving, yep. No, looks good to me. I don't see anything differently now than when we first considered it.
Let me on paragraph D on page 2. The mooring and anchoring of all vessels in the harbor management area shall be in accordance with rules and procedures. Do we now change that to the mooring, anchoring, and permitting of all vessels? I'm going back to the to that
good
statement.
Point.
Doug's point, yeah.
Is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
Good catch.
We had, the mooring committee, going back to the rules and procedures, shall assist the harbor master with matters pertaining to the mooring, anchoring, docking, and permitting of vessels in the harbor management area.
So the docking is missing from D also, of the
Do we want to go back? That's the mooring committee. Do we want to add that, make that same language in the town code then?
Seems like more consistency is better between the plan, the code, and the rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. We can make that. I'm sorry to take the dead time here. I'm just saving this stuff and putting it in a different folder here. Proposed.
Jeff, on C, where it says amended, that's the language that's in there now, and also in further up under 3. Does they understand that the dates will change for the amended when we send this to the RTM?
Well, those dates amended were, you see that one in C is amended 11/24/08. So now we have to. That was the first time that section was amended, I guess.
Right, and I guess on 24/12 it says 4/28/2008. This is just a question: is what we send to the RTM supposed to already include the amended? Well, we don't know what the dates are going to be.
We don't know what the dates will be for our amendments. Those would be when they're published. And
okay.
And so if you have a section that was amended in 2008 and then again in 2021, do you put both of them? Both of those amended.
All right. So we just leave it the way it is, and they'll add another one. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because that's not in bold. That's just the way it was.
Understood.
In there now.
I just didn't know if we were supposed to change anything here.
Yeah.
Okay. Ted, anything on this document, the town code update?
Nope.
Okay. I have nothing on it either, Kim.
No, it looks good.
I don't want to foreclose our conversation, but I don't have anything else. Is there anything else that we should discuss?
I went back to my notes from the public hearing.
Yeah.
Was it the public hearing? Yeah, the deliberative part of the public hearing. No, it's a meeting of 12:15. I'm sorry, our meeting on 12:15. And there was one other comment to go back to the rules. One other comment about the definition in footnote 6, and I don't know. Footnote 6 is on page. Where is? Did maybe we take it? Footnote 6. Oh, it's highlighted. Okay. A mooring on page 2. For purposes of these rules, a mooring float is a single floating dock unattached to land, secured by bottom anchors, and used to secure vessels. And there was some concern that we have that the definition includes some language about secured by no more than 2 pilings or stakes.
I'm sorry, Kim.
I have that in a question mark in my notes.
I remember, Jeff, you saying that you had picked up this language as a definition that was published elsewhere.
Yeah, that's what you're thinking ahead of me here. And that
well, okay. You know what? We can.
There's a general permit issued by the DEP for harbor moorings, they call it.
Okay.
And that in effect sort of delegates their authority to the harbor master. And it has a definition of moorings. And I think I took that mooring float definition out of that, but I have to check on that.
Okay.
It's just going to take me a bit to find it here. I'm looking. General permit. Let's see. General. I'm looking in another folder. DEP. No, not there. Let's try once more, and then if I can't find it right how it'll take me a minute. Well, one thing about these telephone meetings, not in person, I wouldn't have my computer to be looking on this stuff. DEP. Let's see. No. It's going to take me a second. Here it is. I think this is it. Okay. General permit for minor coastal structures. Eligible. Where's the definitions? Mooring. Okay. Mooring means that this is a larger definition. Mooring means a structure which is employed to moor, dock, or otherwise secure a vessel used for waterborne travel, and which consists of either 1. A mooring buoy secured by bottom anchor, 2. A system of mooring lines secured to no more than 2 pilings or stakes, or 3. A single floating dock unattached to land and not associated with any other docking structure. Which is no more than 100 square feet in area, secured by bottom anchor or by no more than 2 pilings or stakes, and seasonally installed and removed. That's the DEP definition. So I did not include all of that then.
I don't remember this detail. Kim, was there a suggestion that the full definition should be put in the footnote?
I have in my notes for footnote 6 that I just have state definition and then secured by no more than 2 pilings or stakes. So
somebody went to the full definition, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, in the town code, there's also a definition of mooring, I think. I believe we had definitions in the town code. Wait a minute. Well, I guess it would have been easier if I had printed all these things, too, and had the town code, town code.
Well, isn't this the first version of the rules that we've used, mooring float?
Yes.
So
we added that.
Right?
Yeah.
So mooring floats. Mooring might be in the town code, but then theoretically, mooring float would not be there, right?
Yeah, mooring is in the definitions in our town code. The place where, or the object to which a vessel can be made fast by means of mooring tackle, so designed that when attachment of such tackle to the vessel is terminated, some portion of the tackle remains below the surface of the water and is not under the control of the vessel or its operator. There's also a definition of tackle.
And that goes, so that goes back to 1985, and then this other definition I read is a more recent one from the DEP stuff. Mooring float is a single floating dock. For the purpose of these rules and procedures, I don't think we want to include that you can put in pilings for a float. Do you? In the additional structures in the harbor?
No, we don't. Do we?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Would we want to say not more than 100 square feet?
How big are those ideal docks currently?
I thought they had to be cut. Know. One of them had to be cut, not the ideal dock, but the other had to be cut back to be not more than 100 square feet. I thought the one over by Perry Green.
Right. The whaler dock.
In order to be permitted.
Dock. Yeah.
Yep.
I guess we could add not greater than 100 square feet.
Well, what would happen if somebody tried to? Well, they'd need a permit. If somebody tried to install anything bigger, right? They'd need a permit?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean,
yes.
So we would have the opportunity to comment.
In addition, each commercial mooring float authorized by DEEP. We're referring to in that footnote refers to the PYC floats specifically.
Yes.
In addition, each commercial mooring float authorized by DEEP and the Corps of Engineers for use by the PYC also shall be authorized by the harbor master.
Yeah, just they get a permit.
Well, maybe we could add not to exceed 100 square feet, because that does.
It conforms to the state rule.
Conforms to the state rule. And we don't. I don't think we want to include the possibility of no more than 2 pilings or stakes.
No.
Agree.
All right, so that's what I did. I took that. I shortened the existing definition from DEEP.
Okay.
Well, so I could change that. Let's see here.
So you're going to make a change to that footnote to add the 100 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other points about the 3 documents that we looked at today before we move on to the last item on our agenda for today's meeting? Anything else? Let me try to make quick work of this last item. This is with regard to the 2 more recent mooring rules and procedures update suggestions from members of the public that we had not previously contemplated. I brought these up at the last monthly Harbor Management Commission meeting, and I've thought a bit more about them since then. The first one was the notion that we should consider implementing a small annual fee for the unpermitted docked vessels that complete docked vessel reports to the harbor master, because these people are, as a matter of principle, benefiting from the work of the commission and the harbor master in maintaining the harbor, and otherwise pay nothing towards the support of the harbor's management. And then the second item, suggestion from a different person, was that owners of moored and docked vessels should provide the harbor master with a copy of their Connecticut Safe Boating Certificate, which is required of all operators of vessels in the state of Connecticut. And I guess my sense is the first idea about the fee, while I agree with the concept in principle, I believe that a proposal to implement a new fee and a rule that doesn't exist today would require us to have another public hearing, and I think that we should consider taking a pass on this to avoid slowing down the process of implementation of these rules and approval of them by having to do another public hearing because of that. And with respect to the second idea about requiring the harbor master requiring a copy of the Safe Boating Certificate, we could either add that to the rule specifically, or we could, as we've talked about before, Rule 4 and Rule 7 gives the harbor master a lot of latitude in terms of what documents he might require. Seems to me as a matter of administration, he could require that, and he would be supported by our existing rules and our proposed rules with flexibility of what documents he might require. So I'm in agreement that it's a good idea. I just am not sure it needs to be specifically included in the rules, and I think as a matter of just administration by the harbor master, he could ask for it, and it would be part of 4 and Rule 7's latitude. I don't know if others have thoughts on those two proposals from the public.
I agree with you, Jack, that I think that our rules would allow the harbor master to ask for the safe boating certificate. I'm trying to think what the public's reaction would be, and whether there's what reactions would be. It seems to me at whether or not we update the rules to include specifically the safe boating certificate, that if the commission decides to recommend to the harbor master that he ask for a safe boating certificate, that would be something that we'd also recommend that he send out a notice ahead of time and letting folks know that this was coming.
Yes.
But I don't know. I think that people who have it aren't going to complain. It'll be the people who don't have it who are going to, not be happy that now it's required. And
the members of the public who brought this idea to my attention, their parenthetical comment on it was that this is the first thing that the Marine unit of the Fairfield Police and any other police Marine unit will ask for when they board your vessel, since it's required by law. So it's not like it's an option. The only issue here is, I suppose it's possible that the person who holds the permit is not the person who operates the vessel. I don't know of any situations where that's the case, but it may be only the person who's operating the vessel is required to have this, not the person who has a permit. Generally, I can't think of a situation where they're not one and the same.
Well,
in any case, I guess we could suggest that at a commission meeting. We could suggest that to the harbor master, that he use his latitude under our existing rules to ask for that, or we decide not to do that. I'm not sure it needs to be specifically called out in an update to the rule.
Well, I guess my only, again, playing devil's advocate, my only thought, we have the broad language allowing the harbor master really to ask for anything that he deems necessary, but we also then specify registration and insurance. And it seems to me that if the police ask for kind of all three at the same time, then it doesn't make much sense for us not to include the safe boating certificate.
Right. I think if we were going to put it in the rules, we should say that if the permit holder is customarily the operator of the vessel, it should be required.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that somebody who is customarily the operator of the vessel shouldn't have a Connecticut safe boating certificate.
Right. I mean, obviously, since we allow people from all over to be on the waiting list and have a mooring, I assume that even if they live in New Hampshire, if they get a mooring in Southport Harbor, they have to follow Connecticut law vis-a-vis registration and insurance. So the safe boating permit would be just another thing that they would have to do.
Right.
So it would be everybody.
Everybody who's operating a vessel, right? It's the operating the vessel part that gets you.
Right.
I think it may be a personal watercraft certificate now too. I don't know, Ted. I don't know if you know what it's called. I don't.
When I got it, it was still called the safe boating certificate.
Yeah, I think people customarily call it the safe boating certificate.
But
I definitely
just
agree that if it's going to be done for next year, a requirement that he should send an email to everybody to alert them and tell them where they can investigate where the courses are taught to get the certificate.
Right.
You can send an email to everyone about that.
Just to throw another opinion into the mix on this, I think where I am on this is that if the Harbor Management Commission feels strongly that this is something that everyone should be required to submit, then we should have it in the rules. On the other hand, if we think it's something we want to suggest to the harbor master, but leave it up to his discretion whether he requires it or not, then I would probably leave it out of the rules. And my opinion would be I do think we should request it.
We should require it, is what you're saying.
We should require it, right?
Okay.
So
yeah,
therefore,
I could go either way.
I could go
either way, but I'd support that.
Hello?
I would support that. Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of the other item, the small fee, I think in terms of fairness, it's probably something we should want to do. But in terms of having a real impact on either the revenues that we receive or ultimately the fairness in terms of what people pay, I think the impact is really de minimis, and therefore, since another public meeting would be required, I would not do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly we can leave a recommendation to our successors that next time around they might want to consider that the fee for the docking vessels. But I agree. If it's going to slow us down, we've already hit so many stumbling blocks, and time is not our friend. For what, $120 or $12? Well, with Pequot, maybe
it's only
20.
a handful of boats, right?
Yeah.
It's the ones at Pequot and the people at private docks, and that's it.
Yeah.
And this is more. I think the person who proposed this was just offended that people pay nothing. And thought that it was a matter of principle; they should pay something. And I don't think anybody would disagree.
Thought.
I just think it's just too much
trouble. Sorry, but it's being considered in other towns too. And as far as we know, no other harbor commission collects such a fee. The 5 Mile River Commission does, which is a joint commission between Darien and Norwalk, but it's not a harbor management commission. It's a special act commission created by the legislature, and they have a provision for collecting fees for boats at docks. And in the city ordinance of Norwalk that deals with the 5 Mile River Commission, there's a recognition that certain fees collected in that manner, like the fees for docks, that will be used for capital projects, not administration. But that's a different issue. But the Norwalk Harbor Commission has been looking at this for like the past year or so about opportunities for raising additional fees, and is coming up with proposals. And they're going to propose a fee for boats at docks at the commercial marinas, which I think they feel will be relatively easy to collect because the marina operators will assess an additional fee. The fees
this is in Norwalk, Jeff?
Yes, this is Norwalk.
Yeah, they have a huge amount of dock vessels.
Yes, and Stanford has thought about this as well, based on the same concern that it's a question of fairness. That why should the mooring permit holders shoulder most of the burden? But there's still the question of how you would collect the fee for the individual docks, of which there are many more in Norwalk and Stanford than there are in Southport, and the extent to which property owners might object to that as an additional tax on their property. So it hasn't been done elsewhere, although the other commissions are considering it. And another question, and we brought this to the attention of the town attorney some years ago. I think we talked about this when Mary was chair. but we never got an answer back. What was if the authority for doing this in the state statute is that the commission may recommend a fee for a mooring or an anchorage, whatever that means, or any other activity within the scope of the plan. So if the commission was to propose a fee for docked vessels, would that mean we would have to adjust the amend the harbor management plan to specifically say that that's within the scope of the plan? So that's another question. We in the plan update we might address this in some way, but I agree with what you're saying. Just right now it seems like it would be adding, another issue that would have to be discussed and thought through. And I think maybe we should put that off.
Right. For the next time, we need to have a public hearing. If we have to have a public hearing regarding the rules, then it becomes ripe.
Yeah,
I think.
But it is a question of fairness, because all of those people benefit from the management of all those people. All the dock owners benefit from the management of the harbor, by the commission. And why should they not then contribute, an amount into the management of the harbor?
Right.
But anyway, I've talked. But it's been discussed in other towns, and it hasn't been implemented in any other town yet.
Okay, so it sounds like on this second major item on our agenda that there's a consensus of this group that we would specifically add to the rules language about the Connecticut Safe Boating Certificate as one of the required items going forward. And a thought that we would have Ed alert, if we are going to be implementing this, alert people well in advance. They get to have time to sign up for the class if they don't already have it, to get in compliance for next year. And then with respect to the annual fee, that we table that one, give some guidance to a future commission that something they might consider next time there's a public hearing on rules. Kim, can I turn the meeting over at this point to you for guidance in terms of what the next steps could be relative to this?
I of course. I would like to think that we would be ready to recommend to the full commission on the 20th recommend that they approve the draft that we have just kind of gone through and completed today, and that we I don't know the state of those folks who requested additional time to consider the draft up until this point, and perhaps, and I'm looking for ideas and suggestions. This having a COVID meeting in COVID, and I have no sense of how people are feeling about voting on the rules when I suggested at the meeting, because I can't see their expressions, and it's so hard to make comments with the muting and unmuting business. So I guess what I would suggest is that we present the culmination of all the changes in today's work to the commissioners on the 20th, that we ask them to take the time to review it between the 20th and the May meeting, and that we ask that they be prepared to vote. The May meeting is on May 18, that they be prepared to vote or tell us why they can't vote on the 18th. I don't know how that strikes everybody, and I certainly am open to input or other suggestions about how to present this. But I don't know. Does anybody have any ideas?
Certainly sounds a good plan.
I don't
I
think
guess I'm wondering if it may be that this is one of those rare occasions where we don't have everybody voting the same way.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know. I mean, I know that that there was the littoral rights addition to the rules concerned many people. I'm not sure if that is still a concern, especially since we've raised it's come up again in recently with the Tom Owens application. But it seems to me that we've given commissioners plenty of time to at least review the work that was done through the end of 2020. It's been 3 months. So.
Well, here what I'm just reading. The requirements for adopting these rules and procedures in the town code as it exists now. Mm-hmm. So prior to adopting any such rules and procedures, the Commission shall conduct a public hearing. Mm-hmm. Notice of the time and place published, and we've done all that. Following said public hearing, the Commission shall act upon said rules and procedures and may make such changes or alterations in the form or content of the proposed rules and procedures as seen appropriate or necessary as a result of the public hearing. Such changes, additions, or alterations shall not require further public notice. Then, such rules and procedures, if adopted by the Commission, shall become effective after publication once in a local newspaper having substantial circulation in the town of Fairfield. So if the Commission adopts these, as we're suggesting now, prior to amendment of this town code by the RTM, we'd have to publish them in the newspaper.
Or is that not required anymore because of the COVID?
Or maybe that's not required any. That's right. That's right.
But we do have to publish a link.
We'd have to publish.
We have to publish notice to the public that this is the link and this is where they can find the proposed rules.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. So that would be the next step after the Commission approves.
You're right.
Right. Okay. So
you're right. The COVID changes that.
Right.
So, Jeff, just to be clear, the document that is the updated proposed rules and the document that's the proposed updates of the town code are documents you prepared, and I believe that the fee and tape and mooring tackle might be something I prepared.
Yes.
I don't know that you have it in a form that you could change the dates on it. I might have to do that and send it to you or send it to Kim for the meeting.
You send it in a Word document. I could maybe put the letterhead at the top with the Town of Fairfield Harbor Management Commission and the.
Okay, I'll just send you. I'll do it. You know what? I'm going to do it as it exists, and you can make the date changes to 2022 and anything else you'd like to do to it.
So I have to. We'll change this. I have to make, at your direction, these several changes that we talked about today.
Right.
Which I've noted here. And then this previous version was dated December 12th, 2020, draft for adoption. So would we simply change the date to the April 20th, 2021 draft for adoption? And would
I think so. I can't think of why we wouldn't do that.
Okay. And would
because
we
need changes.
I do think your idea of using red or something to show the changes we made today would be helpful so that the yellow remains the things that were modified as a result of the public hearing, and the red is the even more recent updates that we just talked about today.
Okay, that's so I just right now there's a note at the top saying modifications to December 1, 2020 public hearing draft are highlighted in yellow. And then maybe we say modifications to the December 2020 draft for, what did I call it here? Draft for adoption are shown in red.
Yeah. If lots of the members of the commission had participated today, we would need to do that. But I think because so many are not available, we need to do that.
We have to show the ones that that were changed today, or that was suggested to be changed as a result of today's meeting.
Right.
Because I don't want today's changes to cause a further delay.
Right. Right. So they can see what we did today. They can compare that to what they've already seen, and take a look at the whole package and hopefully be ready.
I guess that redundant line, Jeff, you'd have to put a red line through, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how to do it. Well, I'll just make the whole thing in red and strike it out.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. The deletion of it. Yeah. All right.
And then I mean, does that timing make sense? That Jack reports on the meeting on the 20th. We give the commissioners the documents. We ask them to take the month to consider it. We lay out the timetable and ask them to be prepared to vote. That's 5 months from the public hearing.
Right. That would hopefully get us June, July, August to get RTM approval, maybe September.
Worst case, September.
Right. And then
a couple of months to work with online mooring.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing, right? We need to do that.
Right.
Okay.
Another topic that's sort of related. I talked with Ed the other day because I'm trying to finish the annual report, and which I plan to hopefully have the draft tomorrow. I talked with Jeff Engborg. I got a few photos from Hugh Smith. Ed gave me some highlights that he thought, and then I'm also changing it a little bit at the beginning to make note of the difficult circumstances this year with respect to the COVID limitations, but the commission continued to work to do its business. So I think it'll be okay, but I plan to have a draft by the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay.
And I changed the format a little bit so it doesn't look exactly the same with two columns as it did the last number of years. So just bear with me, if you will, until the end of the day tomorrow.
Sure.
Also, you all should be aware that Ed has been grappling with some frustrating operational problems with online mooring, processing of people moving from the waiting list onto new assigned moorings. And he's been working with staff at Online Mooring, but having no success with a succession of fixes that haven't fixed the problem. So he's getting frustrated that this very critical piece of his work is not processing properly in the system. He does not think that the boaters are being affected by this. He's communicating to them that they're being assigned new moorings, but he can't get the system to process the switch from being on the waiting list to being assigned a mooring properly. He believes that, based on his conversations with them, that this problem is caused by some of the unique rules that we have in Fairfield that are different from other harbors. So more to come on that, but he's obviously frustrated with the hours he's been spending with them on the phone to fix it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think the rules in Southport are no one can say that in another town that they have more thoughtful or I'm just thinking about the attention that's given to rules and procedures that I'm aware of in other towns, and they just exist, and they're not given the attention that they are here, and that's I don't think anyone can suggest that these rules aren't carefully thought through and are thought through to serve the public interest. But anyway, I'll stop talking about that. It's a very good job in my opinion.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Jeff. This has certainly been a huge effort, and a lot of people have spent a lot of time, you and Jack included, and it's really encouraging to know that we're doing a good job, and that it's in some ways hopefully a model for what can be done by volunteers interested in such an important resource as the harbor.
Yeah. with fixed and limited mooring locations. That's the key thing. That in Norwalk, if there's no waiting list, I mean, if people want mooring offshore their properties, there's plenty of space, and so we don't have that issue of people on the waiting list. Don't know how it is in Greenwich. I think that there may be waiting lists, but those are waiting lists for moorings in specific, Anchorage areas.
Right.
But I shouldn't. I just know that this waiting list issue is from my perspective, from my experience, it exists here in Southport because the harbor is so confined, and there are fixed and limited spaces, and we have an obligation to provide opportunities for the general public in the federal anchorage, and in accordance with a requirement to manage the anchorage open to all on equal terms. But anyway, I'll stop talking.
It's an interesting challenge, and Jack, as you pointed out, I think we've made a huge effort to balance the interests of the property owners, the public, the folks on the wait list. There's just such a huge demand for the beautiful little harbor. So, not an easy job.
Right. Okay. All right, Ted and Jeff and Kim, I think we can be adjourned. Thank you all.
Jack?
Yes.
Jack and Kim?
Yep.
I just had one other thing for Kim real quick that's unrelated to the topic at hand. Can I ask that?
Sure.
I was just wondering if you've heard anything from Brenda Kupchik's office regarding our budget.
Ted, I have heard nothing.
Okay, that must mean that the RTM doesn't need a representative at their meeting. I can't imagine that they would, because we're so small in the overall scheme of things.
And there's so much else going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, but believe me, if I hear from them, I will let you know.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't reach out or anything. I think they have other more important. Don't want to raise an issue that isn't there.
That doesn't exist. I totally agree.
And Kim, might I call you to talk about the aquariums, some of these other topics?
Sure,
okay.
I'm around.
After the meeting, we will. Okay.
Yeah, I'm around. Great.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank
Gentlemen,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
You too. Take care.